For 18 years he believed his granddaughter lived like a princess, $2 million sent every month without fail. But when the investigators found her, she was sleeping in a Chicago shelter in donated clothes, with hands cracked from washing dishes. And he asked a question that left the stepmother speechless. Where is every cent I sent? Like if this broke your heart. It is more than a click. It is saying, I understand you. Comment how you think this story will end. And if you have not subscribed yet, it cost you nothing, but for us it means the world. Thank you for being here. The afternoon fell over Miami with that golden light that Michael Smith had learned to appreciate in his 73 years. Sitting on the balcony of his apartment, he observed how the shadows grew long over the avenue. A cup of coffee rested in his hands, almost cold now. The phone had rung an hour ago. The voice on the other side was professional, careful. Mr. Smith, I need to see you. Today, if possible. Alvin Rivers arrived on time. Private detective, 40-something years old. Discreet suit, worn leather briefcase. Michael had hired him 3 weeks ago because of an intuition he could not explain. Something in the last photo that Sarah had sent him did not fit. Lucy's smile seemed rehearsed. Her eyes looked out of the frame, as if looking for an exit. Mr. Smith, Alvin left the briefcase on the dining table. What I'm going to show you will not be easy to see. Michael nodded. Without words. His hands, large and marked by time, rested on his knees. The detective took out a yellow envelope, thick, heavy. He opened it with care, like someone who handles something delicate or dangerous. The first photographs showed a worn building in a Chicago neighborhood, walls with peeling paint, graffiti, windows with rusty bars. Then, the interior, a shelter, metal bunks, thin mattresses, institutional blankets of undefined color. This is Lucy, Alvin said, pointing to an image. Michael felt the air leave his lungs. The young girl in the photo was 18 years old, just turned, but her eyes looked older. She was standing in an industrial kitchen with her hands submerged in soapy water, washing dented aluminum plates. She wore a grey t-shirt that was too big, worn jeans with homemade patches on the knees, sneakers with the soles coming off. Her brown hair pulled back in an improvised ponytail. Her back slightly hunched, as if she carried an invisible weight. Where was this photo taken? Michael's voice was barely a whisper. Holy Hope Shelter in Chicago? Lucy has been living there for 3 months. She sleeps in a bunk in the common bedroom. She washes dishes in exchange for 3 meals a day. More photographs. Lucy leaving the shelter at dawn, walking through empty streets with a worn backpack on her shoulder. Lucy sitting in a public library, leaning over used textbooks, biting the tip of a pencil. Lucy at a bus stop under the rain, without an umbrella, with her arms crossed to protect herself from the cold. But Michael left the photos on the table, unable to hold them. I send $5,000 every month, without fail, since she was born. 18 years. More than $1 million, Alvin completed. I know. I have verified all the transfers. Each one arrived at the designated account, an account in the name of Lucy Miller Smith, managed by Sarah Miller as legal guardian. Then how? Alvin took out more documents. Bank statements, account movements, property records. Sarah Miller owns a house valued at $1,200,000 in Aspen, 3 high-end vehicles. Her 2 children study in private schools that cost $20,000 a year each. In the last 5 years, she has made 6 international trips to luxury destinations: Maldives, Dubai, New York. The words hit like stones. Michael listened, but his mind stayed anchored in the image of Lucy washing dishes, sleeping on a communal mattress, walking under the rain without a coat. Does she know? He asked finally. Does Lucy know anything about the money? No. I have talked discreetly with the shelter staff. Lucy believes she was abandoned. She believes no one ever loved her. Sarah told her that you blamed her for her mother's death, that you preferred to forget about her. The silence that followed was dense, heavy like melted lead. Michael closed his eyes. He saw Elizabeth, his only daughter, at 28 years old and in her nurse uniform, 6 months pregnant, smiling in the last photograph he took of her. He saw the grave he visited every Sunday. He saw the 18 years he had just lost. I want to see her, he said, opening his eyes. Tomorrow I want to see my granddaughter. Alvin nodded, closing the briefcase. There is something else you must know, Mr. Smith. Lucy is studying at night. She wants to get her high school diploma. The shelter staff says she is brilliant, that she asks about everything, that she reads every book she finds, that she helps others even though she has nothing herself. Michael looked again at the photograph of Lucy in the kitchen. In her tired eyes, there was something he recognized. Determination. The same one Elizabeth had. The same one that allowed him to build a fortune from zero, working 14 hours a day when he was young. She is just like her mother, he whispered. Alvin picked up his things and went to the door. Before leaving, he turned. Mr. Smith, when you see her, do not scare her. She does not know who you really are. She does not know someone has been looking for her. For her, the world has been a very hard place. When the door closed, Michael remained still, with the photographs scattered over the table. Outside, Miami filled with nightlights. Inside, a man of 73 years cried in silence, pressing in his hands the image of a young girl who washed dishes to survive, while he, without knowing it, had funded the luxury life of the one who should have protected her. Michael did not sleep that night. He stayed in the living room, surrounded by photo albums he had not opened in years. The walls of his apartment were decorated with moderation, some simple paintings, shelves with books, a plant he cared for with discipline. Nothing flashy. He never cared about impressing anyone. He found what he was looking for in a cardboard box kept in the study closet. Inside, carefully preserved, were Elizabeth's memories, his only daughter. The little girl who became a brilliant woman, a dedicated nurse, the person he had loved most in his life. The first photograph showed Elizabeth at 5 years old in Central Park in New York, where they lived then. She had scraped knees from running so much, messy hair, a smile that took up her whole face. Michael remembered that day. He remembered how she had insisted on feeding the ducks, how she had cried when they had to leave. He turned the pages. Elizabeth at 12 years old in her school uniform, proudly showing a science prize. Elizabeth at 17, the day she decided she wanted to be a nurse. I want to help people, Dad. I want sick children to have someone who understands them. Michael remembered telling her to study medicine, that she could earn more, have more prestige. Elizabeth had shaken her head. I don't want prestige. I want to be near those who suffer. At 23 years old, Elizabeth graduated, with honors. She got a job at the General Hospital of Chicago, in the pediatric unit. The letters she sent to Michael were full of stories, brave children, grateful families, long but meaningful nights. Elizabeth never complained. She loved what she did. It was in the hospital where she met Daniel Miller, resident doctor, 30 years old, serious but kind. Michael remembered him well, tall, thin, with metal frame glasses and a calm way of speaking. He was not rich. He did not have important contacts, but he treated Elizabeth as if she were the most valuable thing in the world. That was enough for Michael. They married in a simple ceremony in Chicago. Elizabeth wore a white dress without flash, a crown of natural flowers. Daniel looked at her as if he could not believe his luck. Michael, who by then was a widower for 3 years, danced with his daughter under the hanging lights of the small garden where they celebrated. Be happy, he whispered in her ear. Only that matters to me. And she was happy. For almost 3 years, Elizabeth and Daniel built a quiet life. They shared a modest apartment in the city, worked in the same hospital in different shifts, planned for the future. When Elizabeth got pregnant, she called Michael, crying with joy. You are going to be a grandfather, Dad. We are going to call her Lucy. Lucy Miller Smith. Michael felt a chill running down his back, remembering that call. Elizabeth's voice, so full of life, so full of hope. Then came the night that changed everything. Daniel was leaving the hospital late, like so many times. He was driving his old car down the main road, probably thinking about Elizabeth, about the baby that would be born in 3 months. He did not see the other car coming. A drunk driver who had left a bar in the outskirts crossed the red light at almost 60 miles per hour. The impact was brutal. Daniel died instantly. The other driver survived with minor injuries. Later, Michael learned that the man had 3 previous convictions for driving under the influence of alcohol. He had never stepped in jail. Elizabeth received the news in the hospital where she worked. Michael always gave thanks that her colleagues were with her in that moment. They hugged her, they held her, they called Michael. When he arrived in Chicago on the first train in the morning, he found his daughter sitting in a plastic chair in the waiting room with a lost look, her hands over her swollen belly. Dad, she said when she Saw him. I have to continue, for her, for Lucy. And she tried. For 3 months, Elizabeth continued working, doing her prenatal checks, preparing the baby's room. Michael went to Chicago every weekend. He cooked for her, he walked with her, he listened to her silences. Elizabeth did not cry in front of him, but Michael knew she did it at night, hugging Daniel's pillow. The labor began one early morning in October, 3 weeks earlier than expected. Elizabeth was alone at home. She called Michael, but he was in Miami, 3 hours away by plane. She called an ambulance. On the way to the hospital, complications began. Placental abruption, massive hemorrhage. The medical team had to choose, save the mother or save the baby. Elizabeth, still conscious, made the decision for them. "Save my daughter," she said. Those were her last words. Lucy was born crying, healthy, perfect. Elizabeth died 3 minutes later, bled out, in the same unit where she had worked, surrounded by colleagues who loved her and could not save her. Michael arrived at the hospital when everything was over. They handed him Lucy wrapped in a white blanket, with her eyes closed, her fists clenched. She was identical to Elizabeth as a newborn, the same dark hair, the same shape of the nose. Michael held her for hours, unable to cry, unable to think. His daughter was dead. His granddaughter was alive. He did not know how to handle both truths at the same time. He was 73 years old now, but then he was 55. He lived alone. He still worked, managing his properties, traveling constantly. He did not know how to raise a baby. He did not know if he would have strength. He did not know if he could look at Lucy without seeing Elizabeth dead. It was then that Sarah appeared. Sarah Miller was 10 years older than her brother Daniel. She worked as a clerk in an insurance company, was divorced, had 2 children, Mark, 7 years old, and Sophie, 5. Michael had seen her a few times, always in brief family meetings. She was a woman of robust build, hair dyed blonde, excessive makeup, loud clothes. She spoke loud. She laughed even louder. At Elizabeth's funeral, Sarah approached Michael with a sorry expression. "I know this is hard," she said, touching his arm, "but I want to help. Daniel was my younger brother. I loved him, and that girl is the only thing left of him." Michael, exhausted, vulnerable, listened to her proposal. Sarah would take care of raising Lucy. She would treat her like her own daughter, along with Mark and Sophie. Lucy would have siblings, a mother figure, stability. Michael could visit her when he wanted, be part of her life, but without the daily burden of raising a baby, being an older and alone man. It sounded reasonable. It sounded generous. "I will need financial help, of course," Sarah added. "Raising 3 children is not cheap, but you can trust me. Lucy will be well cared for." Michael accepted. They agreed on a monthly sum of $5,000, which would be deposited in an account in Lucy's name, managed by Sarah as legal guardian. Sarah suggested something more. "Maybe it is better that you do not visit much at the beginning. Babies need routine. Visits could confuse her. When she is older, you can explain everything to her." Michael, sunken in grief, accepted that too. He convinced himself it was for the best. He convinced himself that staying away was an act of love. For 18 years, he lived with that belief. Now, sitting in his living room with Elizabeth's photographs scattered around him, Michael understood the size of his error. He had not protected Lucy. He had not honored Elizabeth's memory. He had paid money believing that with that, it was enough. The dawn light began to filter through the windows. Michael picked up the photographs. He put them away with care. He took one in particular, Elizabeth at 26 years old, dressed in her nurse uniform, holding a newborn child. Elizabeth's smile was soft, protective. "I'm going to find her, daughter," he said out loud to the photograph, to the vacuum, to whoever could hear. "I'm going to fix this, I promise you." Lucy did not remember her mother. She did not remember her father. Her first memories were all grey, all cold. The apartment where she grew up was in a Chicago neighborhood, in a building from the 70s that never received maintenance. 4th floor without elevator. 2 small rooms, a bathroom with broken tiles, a narrow kitchen where barely one person fit. The windows looked out to a dark interior patio where the sun never arrived. Sarah occupied the main room with her 2 children, Mark and Sophie. Lucy slept on a single mattress in the corner of the living room, behind the worn sofa. She did not have her own closet. Her clothes fit in 2 plastic bags kept under the mattress. Since very small, Lucy knew she was different. Mark and Sophie ate bran cereals for breakfast. She ate hard bread with oil. Mark and Sophie had new backpacks every September. She used one they found in a used clothes bin. Mark and Sophie went to birthdays of classmates. Lucy went nowhere. "You are lucky to be here," Sarah told her almost daily. "No one else wanted you. Your grandfather blames you for killing your mother. He preferred to forget about you. I picked you up because I am a good person. You should be more grateful." Lucy believed every word. How was she not going to believe them? It was all she knew. Sarah said she schooled her at home, but there was no education. There were no textbooks, there were no study schedules, there were no teachers. Lucy learned to read alone, decoding the labels of supermarket products, the ads in the street, the old newspapers that Sarah left on the table. She learned to count, playing with coins she found in the pockets of forgotten coats. Outings were rare and always brief. Sarah took her to the supermarket once a week, always early in the morning when there were few people. "Do not talk to anyone," she ordered her. "Do not look at anyone. Walk behind me and shut up." Lucy obeyed. At home, Lucy was invisible. She got up early before the others and waited in silence until Sarah indicated what to do. She cleaned the kitchen, swept the floor, folded the clothes. If she made noise, Sarah locked her in the bathroom for hours. If she protested, she went without eating. Mark and Sophie ignored her most of the time. When they spoke to her, it was to mock her. "Orphan," they told her. "No one ever wanted you. You are a burden." Lucy learned not to answer. She learned that words changed nothing. But there were moments of silent resistance. When Lucy was 10 years old, she found a bag of old books abandoned next to the trash bins. She hid them under her mattress. They were worn novels, encyclopedias from the 80s, broken school manuals. At night, when Sarah and her children slept, Lucy curled up in a corner with a flashlight she had found and read. She read about history, about geography, about science. She read about worlds she did not know, about lives she could not imagine. The books became her refuge. In their pages, she discovered that kind people existed, families that cared for each other, places where the sun shone. She discovered that the world was bigger than that dark apartment, wider than the 4 walls she knew. She also discovered something else, that her mother had been a nurse. It was on an old paper that Sarah had left forgotten. A newspaper clipping about the accident that killed her father. The article mentioned Elizabeth Smith, pediatric nurse at General Hospital. 6 months pregnant, recent widow, fought until the end to save her baby. Lucy kept that clipping like a treasure. She read it hundreds of times until memorizing every word. Her mother had been brave. Her mother had chosen to save her. Her mother had loved her, even if only for 9 months. Since then, Lucy knew what she wanted to be. She wanted to help. Others, like her mother, had done. She wanted her life to have meaning, but Sarah would never allow it. When Lucy turned 15, she began to ask questions. "Why don't I go to school like Mark and Sophie? Why don't I have documents? Where is the money my grandfather was supposed to send?" Sarah slapped her. It was the first time she used physical violence, although emotional violence had been present always. "There is no money," Sarah shouted. "Your grandfather sends nothing. You don't matter to him. You live off my charity, off my generosity. If you mention it again, I throw you to the street." Lucy did not ask again, but she did not forget either. The following years were harder. Mark and Sophie attended private schools, wore brand clothes, had latest generation phones. Sarah bought a new car every 2 years. They traveled in summer to exotic places. Lucy stayed alone in the apartment, eating boiled rice and hard bread. In the nights, she studied with more intensity. She solved math, problems in newspaper margins. She wrote imaginary essays about history. She memorized dates, formulas, concepts. She had no teachers, but she had determination. The day she turned 18, Sarah entered the living room with an old backpack. "You are an adult now," she said without looking her in the eyes. "I no longer have legal obligation with you. Leave." Inside the backpack there were 3 t-shirts, 2 pants, worn underwear, and a photograph. Lucy took it out with trembling hands. It was Elizabeth Young smiling in her nurse uniform. On the back someone had written with careful handwriting, "Elizabeth Smith, General Hospital, 2007. "Where did you get this?" Lucy asked. "It was your mother's. It is the only thing she left. Now get out." Lucy left the apartment with the backpack on her shoulder and the photograph pressed against her chest. She did not know where to go. She had no money, she had no documents, she had no contacts. She was 18 years old and was completely alone. For 2 weeks she slept in subway stations, in parks, in building doorways. She ate from bins behind restaurants. She washed in public bathrooms of shopping centers. At night, she shook from cold wrapped in her only thin jacket. It was a social worker who told her about Holy Hope Shelter. "It is not a hotel," she warned her, "but it is safe. They will give you a bed and food if you work." Lucy accepted without doubting. The shelter occupied an old building in Chicago, shared bedrooms with metal bunks, communal bathrooms, an industrial kitchen where they prepared meals for 50 people daily. The director, an older man called Raymond, offered her a simple deal. She washed dishes 3 times a day, and in exchange, she received housing and food. "Here we judge no one," Raymond said. "We only ask for respect and effort." Lucy worked at dawn, at noon, and at night. Her hands cracked from industrial detergent. Her back hurt from being standing so many hours, but she had a roof, hot food, and a purpose. In the afternoon, she attended free classes in a nearby civic center to get her high school diploma. She was the youngest student, but the most dedicated. The teachers noted her hunger to learn, her capacity of retention, her iron discipline. "Why do you study so hard?" Sarah asked her once, another resident of the shelter. Lucy looked at the photograph of Elizabeth that she always kept in her pants pocket. "To honor the one who gave me life," she responded simply. 3 months. After arriving at the shelter, an older man entered the kitchen looking for her. Michael had rehearsed that moment during all the trip. He had prepared words, apologies, explanations. But when he saw Lucy standing in front of the industrial sink, with her hands submerged in soapy water and her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, all the words were erased. It was Elizabeth, the same dark eyes, the same tilt of the head when she concentrated, the same natural thinness, but there was something more, a hardness in the look that Elizabeth never had, a tension in the shoulders that spoke of years of survival. "Lucy?" His voice came out rough, loaded with contained emotion. She lifted her look, surprised. Raymond, the director, had allowed Michael's entry after verifying his identity. Alvin Rivers waited at the entrance, giving them privacy but attentive. "Yes?" Lucy dried her hands on a dirty rag, instinctively on the defensive. Michael took a step forward. Slowly. "I am Michael." "Smith? Your grandfather?" The silence that followed was absolute. Even the kitchen sounds seemed to fade. Lucy looked at him with an incredulous expression, as if he had spoken to her in a foreign language. "No," she said finally, shaking her head. "I don't have a grandfather. My grandfather didn't want to know about me. Sarah said—" Sarah lied. Michael interrupted, and his voice broke. "She lied for 18 years. Lucy backed up until her back touched the edge of the sink, her eyes filled with tears that she refused to shed. "I don't believe you. Why would you appear now after all this time?" "Because I didn't know." Michael extended his hands, pleading. "I didn't know where you were. I didn't know how you lived. I believed Sarah cared for you well. I sent her money every month, $5,000 since you were born. I thought that gave you a good life." "Money?" Lucy's voice rose in tone. "I never saw money. I never had anything. I slept on the floor, I ate leftovers. I didn't go to school. What money do you speak of?" Michael took out his phone with trembling hands. He showed her the transfer receipts. Year after year, month after month, more than $1 million sent to an account in the name of Lucy Miller Smith. Lucy took the phone, read the figures with eyes that opened more and more. Her hands shook. The tears she had contained began to fall, silent, bitter. "She kept it all," she whispered. "All this time, I believed no one loved me. I believed I was a burden, that I deserved to live like this." "No." Michael approached slowly, like someone who approaches a wounded animal. "Your mother loved you more than her own life. Literally. She died so that you would live. And I have loved you since the day you were born. But I was a coward. I let fear control me. I let another person pull you away from me. And for that, forgive me. Forgive me for every day you suffered alone." Lucy sobbed now, without trying to control herself. Years of pain, of abandonment, of questions without answer gushed from her in waves. Michael took the last step that separated them and hugged her. She resisted at first, rigid, distrustful. But slowly, very slowly, she let herself be held. "I am not going to fail you again," Michael whispered against her hair. "Never again, I promise." Raymond observed from the door, wiping his eyes discreetly. They spent 2 hours in the small office of the shelter. Michael told her everything. He told her about Elizabeth, about her bravery, about her love for helping others. He told her about Daniel, the father Lucy never met. He showed her photographs he had brought. Elizabeth as a girl, Elizabeth graduating, Elizabeth in her nurse uniform. Lucy touched the images with reverence, as if they were sacred objects. "She looked like me," she said with wonder. "You look like her," Michael corrected. "And not only physically. Raymond told me that you studied to be a social worker, that you helped the other girls in the shelter." That is exactly what Elizabeth would have done. For the first time since Michael had entered, Lucy smiled. It was a small smile, fragile but real. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now," Michael said with firmness, "we recover what they stole from you. And we build the life you always should have had." Jack Miller was 38 years old and had an impeccable reputation as a lawyer specialized in financial fraud. Alvin Rivers had recommended him, and Michael hired him that same afternoon. In his office in downtown Miami, Jack spread all the documents over a long glass table: bank statements, property records, private school invoices, travel receipts, vehicle purchases. He had worked without rest for a week. "It is the clearest case I have seen in years," he said, adjusting his glasses. "Sarah Miller committed systematic embezzlement, continued fraud, and breach of trust. There is no gray area here. Everything is documented." Michael listened with Lucy sitting at his side. She had accepted moving temporarily to a small hotel near Michael's apartment while they resolved the legal situation. She no longer slept on a shelter mattress. She no longer washed dishes in exchange for food. But it still cost her to believe it was real. "Explain to me how she did it," Michael asked. Jack displayed a diagram on his tablet. "Every month, you transferred $5,000 to account 4382557188 at Chase Bank in the name of Lucy Miller Smith. Sarah, as legal guardian, had full access to that account. What she did was simple but effective. As soon as the money arrived, she transferred it immediately to 3 different personal accounts." "And no one from the bank noticed?" Lucy asked with a tense voice. "The transfers were technically legal. Sarah had authority as guardian. What was illegal was the destination of the funds. That money was supposed to be used exclusively for Lucy's benefit: education, health, housing, food. Instead, Sarah used it to enrich herself." Jack showed more documents. In 2010, she bought a house in Aspen for $1,200,000. Cash payment. In 2013, a Mercedes E-Class. In 2015, another vehicle. Between 2012 and 2024, she spent more than $240,000 in private schools for her children, international trips, designer clothes, jewelry. Everything is registered. "How much in total?" Michael asked. "Approximately $1,100,000. The rest she probably spent on daily life, restaurants, entertainment, various whims." Lucy clenched her fists over her lap. Michael took her hand. "What can we do?" he asked. "File criminal and civil charges," Jack responded. "We have enough evidence for a conviction. We can also request the immediate freeze of all her assets and full restitution of the money." "I want you to do it," Michael said without doubting. "Lucy," Jack turned toward her, "you will need to testify. You must tell how you lived these 18 years. It will be hard to relive all that publicly." Lucy raised her chin. In her eyes there was something Michael recognized: Elizabeth's determination. "I will do it, not for revenge, but so that this does not happen to anyone else." 2 weeks later, Michael, Lucy, Alvin and Jack arrived in Aspen. Sarah's house was exactly as the documents described. Modern, 2 floors, with a large garden, pool and garage for 3 vehicles. A white Mercedes was parked next to a black BMW. Sarah opened the door dressed in brand sportswear. Her expression passed from surprise to alarm when she saw Lucy. "What are you doing here?" she asked, blocking the entrance. "We come to talk," Michael said with a firm voice. "Inside or here in the street? You decide." Sarah hesitated, then backed up. The interior was flashy. Marble on the floors, designer furniture, a wide staircase with glass railing. On the walls hung photographs of Mark and Sophie in tropical beaches, in ski resorts, in theme parks. There was no photo of Lucy. "This is harassment," Sarah said, crossing her arms. "I'm going to call the police." "Go ahead." Jack took out his identification. "I am Mr. Smith's lawyer. It will be easier to explain everything to them with them present." Sarah turned pale. "Explain what?" Jack placed a thick folder over the dining table. 18 years of bank transfers, $5,000 monthly sent to an account for Lucy's welfare, $0 spent on Lucy, $1,100,000 diverted to your personal accounts. Do you want me to continue? The silence that followed was heavy. Sarah looked at the folder without touching it, as if it burned. I cared for her. I gave her a roof, food, a roof." Lucy's voice was low but sharp. "A mattress on the floor behind the sofa. Food? Hard bread and boiled rice. Education? None. While your children went to $20,000 a year schools, I did not step in a school in my life." "You exaggerate." Sarah tried to sound indignant, but her voice shook. "I gave you more than you deserved. An orphan with nothing, an orphan with more than $1 million, Michael interrupted, "that you stole systematically." Sarah let herself fall into a chair. For the first time, her mask of security cracked. "Daniel was my brother," she whispered. "When he died, I also suffered. And Elizabeth. Elizabeth always had everything. Beauty, intelligence, a brilliant career, love. I worked in a grey office with an ex-husband who abandoned me with 2 children. When that opportunity appeared, I thought my children deserved to have something too. At the cost of an innocent girl," Michael said with contempt. "A girl who was your niece." "She was not my real niece," Sarah replied. "She was Elizabeth's daughter, the perfect Elizabeth who never had to strive for anything." Lucy stood up slowly. "My mother died, giving me life. She worked until her last day caring for sick children. She did not have an easy life. She lost her husband. And you turned her sacrifice into your personal lottery." Sarah cried then, but they were tears of self-pity, not regret. "What are you going to do?" Jack responded with a professional tone. "Tomorrow we file formal charges. Embezzlement, fraud, child abuse, falsification of documents. The state prosecutor already has a copy of all the evidence. Your assets will be frozen, and Lucy will recover every cent you stole from her." Sarah raised her look, desperate. "We can reach an agreement. I can return the money. No need to go to trial." "Yes, there is a need," Lucy said, "because this is not just for the money. It is for 18 years of making me believe I was worth nothing, for making me believe no one loved me, for stealing from me not only a future, but also a past." Michael surrounded Lucy's shoulders with his arm. Together they left that house that others' pain had built. During the weeks before the trial, Michael and Lucy spent the afternoons in the Miami apartment rebuilding the story that Sarah had destroyed. Michael showed her full albums. Elizabeth as a baby, Elizabeth as a girl, Elizabeth as a teenager. Family videos where Elizabeth blew out birthday candles, where she learned to ride a bike, where she graduated with honors. "She had your same laugh," Michael said, pointing to the screen, "and when she concentrated, she wrinkled her nose exactly like you." Lucy absorbed every detail with hunger. For the first time, she knew her mother not as a blurry photo, but as a real person. She learned that Elizabeth loved strawberry ice cream but hated chocolate, that she read poetry at night, that she sang out of tune in the shower, that she dreamed of having 3 children and a house with a garden. "She could only have one," Lucy said in a low voice. "Only me. And she loved you with every fiber of her being." Michael took her hand. When the doctors told her they had to choose between saving her or saving you, she did not hesitate for a second. She said, "Save my daughter." Those were her last words. Lucy cried then like she had never done, not of sadness, but of gratitude. Her mother had not abandoned her. Her mother had gifted her life in exchange for her own. Michael also spoke to her about Daniel. He showed her photos of the tall and thin man with metal frame glasses. He told her how he had met Elizabeth in the hospital, how he courted her with shyness but persistence, how they planned to raise Lucy together. "He would have adored you," Michael said. "Daniel was quiet, kind. He liked to read history. I think you would have inherited his love for books. I already did, Lucy smiled. Although no one taught me, I always looked for books. I always knew there were answers there. One afternoon, Michael took her to the cemetery in Chicago. In front of the white marble grave where Elizabeth and Daniel rested together, Lucy placed fresh flowers. "Mom," she whispered, "Dad, I could never know you, but I am going to honor you. I am going to live the life you wanted for me." Michael, standing next to her, felt something he hadn't felt in 18 years. Peace. He had not forgiven his cowardice, his blindness, but he could start to mend it. The trial was scheduled for mid-December. Jack prepared Lucy for hours. He explained what questions the prosecutor would ask, what arguments Sarah's defense would present, how to keep calm under pressure. "They are going to try to paint you as an opportunist," he warned. "They will say that now, knowing. About the money, you come to claim what you never cared about. Let them try," Lucy responded with serenity. "I know who I am. I know what I lived." Michael also hired a forensic investigator to review the school records. They confirmed that Lucy had never been enrolled in any school, public or private. There were no medical, dental, or vaccination records. Officially, Lucy had been invisible for 18 years. "It is criminal negligence," Jack determined. "Sarah not only stole money, she denied Lucy education, medical care, and basic socialization." They also interviewed neighbors of the building. Several remembered the quiet girl who lived with Sarah. No one had seen her in years. "We thought she had moved," an old lady said. "She was so silent. She seemed scared always." One testimony was particularly moving. Teresa, the owner of a small grocery store near Sarah's apartment, remembered Lucy. "She came sometimes alone, with counted coins. She bought hard bread, the one I sold cheapest. Once I gave her a sandwich because I saw her very thin. She started to cry. She told me, 'Thank you, lady, no one is kind to me.'" Michael listened to that testimony with a broken heart. Lucy squeezed his hand. "It passed, grandfather. Now I have someone who is kind to me." The courtroom was full. Sarah arrived accompanied by her defense lawyer, a man of 50 years with an expensive suit and serious expression. Mark and Sophie, now 25 and 23 years old, sat in the first row, visibly uncomfortable. Lucy entered with Michael, Jack, and Alvin. She wore a simple navy blue dress that Michael had bought her, her hair pulled back in a simple bun. She looked younger than her 18 years, but her look was firm. The judge, a man of 60 years with a severe expression, opened the session. The prosecutor presented the evidence methodically, bank statements projected on a large screen, property records, school invoices, photographs of Sarah's luxury house versus photographs of the mattress where Lucy slept. For 18 years, the prosecutor said, Sarah Miller received more than $1 million destined for the welfare of her niece. During those same 18 years, Lucy Miller Smith lived in conditions of extreme poverty, without formal education, without medical care, without documentation. Meanwhile, the accused and her children enjoyed a life of luxury paid with stolen funds. The defense tried to argue that Sarah had provided the basics and that the differences in treatment between the children were a personal parenting decision, not a crime. Jack demolished that argument, presenting the guardianship laws that required the funds be used exclusively for the beneficiary. Then came the moment of Lucy's testimony. She sat on the stand with her back straight, hands crossed over her lap. The prosecutor asked her direct questions. Lucy responded with a clear voice, without drama, simply describing the facts. "Where did you sleep, Lucy?" "On a single mattress on the floor of the living room behind the sofa." "Did you go to school?" "No, sir. Sarah said she schooled me at home, but there were never classes. I learned to read alone." "What was a normal day in your life like?" Lucy took a breath. "I got up early. I cleaned the kitchen, swept, folded clothes. If I made noise, Sarah locked me in the bathroom. I ate what was left of Mark and Sophie's meals, hard bread, rice without anything. At night, when everyone slept, I read old books I found in the trash. It was the only thing I had." "Did Sarah ever talk to you about the money your grandfather sent?" "Never. When I turned 15, I asked her why I didn't go to school like my cousins. She slapped me. She told me my grandfather sent nothing, that he blamed me for the death of my mother, that I lived off her charity." A murmur ran through the room. The judge hit the gavel, asking for silence. What happened when you turned 18? Sarah handed me a backpack with old clothes and threw me out. She said, "You are an adult now. Leave." I slept on the street for 2 weeks before finding the shelter. Sarah's lawyer tried to discredit the testimony during cross-examination. "Is it not true that you exaggerate your situation to get money now?" Lucy looked at him directly. "Sir, I did not know that money existed until 2 months ago. For 18 years I believed it was true what Sarah told me, that no one loved me, that I was a burden, that I should give thanks for the crumbs they gave me. I do not come here for money, I come for the truth. And you coincidentally discovered this truth just when you reached legal age?" "I did not discover it," Lucy responded with calm. "My grandfather found me. He hired a detective because something in the photos Sarah sent him did not seem right. If it had been for me, I would continue believing no one loved me," the lawyer insisted. "How do we know you are not acting? That it is not a prepared story?" Lucy extended her hands. They were marked with scars from minor burns and cracked skin from industrial detergent. "These are the hands of someone who has washed dishes 12 hours a day to eat. They are not the hands of someone who acts." The silence in the room was absolute. The shelter director, Raymond, also testified, describing the state in which Lucy had arrived: malnourished, without documents, traumatized. Teresa, the store owner, testified, repeating the sandwich gift story. The professor from the Civic Center testified, explaining that Lucy was the most brilliant student he had had in 30 years of teaching, despite not having stepped in a formal school ever. When Sarah went on the stand, her defense fell apart quickly. She tried to justify herself, but every answer sank her more. "Did you use the money destined for Lucy to buy your house?" I needed a better place for my children." "Did you know that money was for Lucy?" "Yes, but did you inform Mr. Smith that you were using the funds in another way?" "No." "Why did Lucy never attend school?" Sarah hesitated. Finally, something in her gave way. Maybe it was the weight of the looks, the irrefutable evidence, or simply the fatigue of lying. "Because if she went to school, someone would ask questions. Someone would notice that while my children had everything, she had nothing. Someone would investigate, and I could not allow that." "So, you deliberately hid Lucy from the world?" "Yes." The prosecutor approached. "Mrs. Miller, why did you do it? Why did you treat an innocent girl like this?" Sarah looked at Lucy for the first time during the trial. In her eyes there was something that could have been shame, or maybe just exhausted resentment. Because Elizabeth always had everything. She was always the favorite, the intelligent, the beautiful, the successful, while I worked in a grey office with a miserable salary. When I stayed with Elizabeth's daughter, with access to all that money, I thought it was justice. I thought my children deserved to have what Elizabeth's children would have had. Lucy was not responsible for your resentment toward her mother." "I know." Sarah lowered her head. "But it was easier to blame her than face my own envy." The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they returned, their faces were grave. "Have you reached a verdict?" "Yes, Your Honor." "How do you find the accused Sarah Miller regarding the charge of aggravated embezzlement?" "Guilty." "Regarding the charge of continued fraud?" "Guilty." "Regarding the charge of child abuse and neglect?" "Guilty." "Regarding the charge of falsification of documents?" "Guilty." Sarah collapsed in her chair. Her children, in the first row, cried in silence. The judge spoke with a firm voice. "Sarah Miller, this court finds you guilty of all charges. For 18 years you abused the trust placed in you. You stole not only money, but the childhood, education, and dignity of a vulnerable girl. You deprived her of opportunities, of family love, of the connection with her only living relative, and all for greed and personal resentment." He made a pause. "I sentence you to 10 years in prison. Also, you must restore the total amount of $1,120,000, plus accumulated interests. All your assets will be frozen immediately and sold to cover the restitution. The recovered funds will be deposited in a supervised judicial trust in the name of Lucy Miller Smith." Sarah was handcuffed and led out of the room. Passing next to Lucy, she stopped briefly. "I am sorry," she whispered. Lucy looked at her without hate, only with fatigue. "I am too. I am sorry you wasted 18 years of your life destroying mine. We could have been family." 3 months after the trial, Lucy moved officially to Michael's apartment in Miami. She had her own room decorated with simplicity but with care. A desk next to the window where she studied, shelves full of new books, clothes that fit her well, bought together in normal stores. Nothing flashy. Michael taught her to cook the recipes Elizabeth loved. Together they prepared dinner on Sundays, pancakes for breakfast, soup in winter. In those simple moments, they built what they had lost. "Your mother always added a bit more sugar," Michael said, showing her. "She said life should always be sweet." Lucy absorbed every detail. Through the recipes, the anecdotes, the small traditions, she knew the mother she had never hugged. In September, Lucy began her studies at the University of Chicago. She chose social work, with a specialization in youth at risk of exclusion. Michael insisted on paying for a small apartment near the campus, but Lucy preferred to share an apartment with other students. "I need to learn to live normally," she explained. "Without luxury, but also without lack. I need to find the balance." Her roommates soon discovered that Lucy was different. She studied more than anyone, valued every opportunity, never wasted food or resources. When they knew her story, they admired her even more. In the university, Lucy stood out immediately. Her professors noted her deep understanding of trauma, poverty, social exclusion. It was not theory for her, it was lived experience. "Your perspective is invaluable," Professor Martin told her after a presentation on homeless youth. "You have lived what others only read in books." On weekends, Lucy returned to Holy Hope Shelter as a volunteer. She helped in the kitchen, but now she also gave tutoring to the younger girls, helped them with school homework, listened to their stories. "You made it," Sarah told her, the young girl she had met when she herself lived there. "If you could, we can too." "It was not easy," Lucy responded honestly, "and I was lucky that someone looked for me. But yes, it is possible, it is always possible." One spring afternoon, Michael and Lucy sat on the balcony of the Miami apartment with coffee and cookies. The sun shone warm, the streets bustled with life. Michael had been thinking about something for weeks. "Lucy, I want to talk to you about the recovered money." Lucy raised her look from her textbook. "It is in the trust, I know. It is yours. More than $1 million plus interests. You can do what you want with it." Lucy left the book aside. "I have been thinking about that too, and I think I know what I want to do," she told him her idea. Michael listened with growing attention, and when she finished, he was smiling. 2 months later, they officially presented the Elizabeth Smith Foundation, Second Opportunity. Its mission: to provide educational scholarships, psychological support and resources to young women leaving the foster system or living in situations of vulnerability. The first call received 200 applications. The committee, formed by Lucy, Michael, Jack, and 2 experienced social workers, selected 30 beneficiaries. In the award ceremony of the scholarships, held in a simple hall in downtown Chicago, Lucy gave a speech. "I know what it is to feel that the world has forgotten you," she began with a clear voice. "I know what it is to believe you deserve nothing good. I know what it is to have talent, dreams, and will, but no opportunity." She looked at the 30 young girls sitting in front of her. Some were her age, others were younger. All carried in their eyes that mix of hope and distrust she recognized perfectly. "This scholarship is not charity. It is recognition of your value. It is investment in your future. And it is the opportunity that we all deserve. The opportunity to demonstrate who we really are when someone believes in us." The applause was long and sincere. Several girls cried. Michael, sitting in the first row, felt a lump in his throat. After the ceremony, a young girl of 16 years approached Lucy shyly. "Is it true that you also lived in a shelter?" "Yes, and I slept in subway stations before that." "And now you are in the university, second year of social work." The girl smiled. "For the first time. Then I can too." "Yes," Lucy squeezed her hand. "You can too." Not everything was easy. Lucy still woke up some nights with nightmares, reliving years of humiliation and fear. In those moments, she walked to the living room where Michael, who also slept little, waited for her with hot tea. "Again?" he asked softly. "I dreamed I went back to Sarah's apartment, that all this was imaginary." "It is not. You are here. You are safe." But Lucy knew that physical safety did not erase emotional scars. With Michael's support, she began therapy with a psychologist specialized in trauma. "It is normal to feel you do not deserve what you now have," Dr. Ramirez explained to her. "For years they told you that you were worth nothing. Rewriting that internal narrative takes time, Lucy worked hard in her healing. She learned to recognize toxic thoughts and replace them with truths. She learned that asking for help was not weakness. She learned that her value did not depend on what others had done to her, but on who she chose to be. One day, a year after the trial, she received a letter. It was from Sophie, Sarah's daughter. "Lucy, I do not expect you to answer. I only want you to know I am sorry. I am sorry I did not see what was happening. I am sorry for enjoying things that were yours by right. I am sorry every time I was cruel to you or ignored you. My mother lied to us all, but that does not exempt me from responsibility. I was old enough to know something was wrong. I simply chose not to see it. I am in therapy now, trying to understand how we got to this. I do not ask for forgiveness because I do not think I deserve it. I only want you to know I recognize the damage and that I admire your strength, Sophie." Lucy read the letter several times. She kept it in a drawer without responding yet. Maybe one day she could, maybe not. And it was fine like that. Forgiveness was a process, not an obligation. What she did do was visit Elizabeth and Daniel's grave again. This time she went alone with a bouquet of white lilies. "Mum," she whispered, "Dad, I could never know you, but I am going to honor you. I am going to live the life you wanted for me. I will be the person Mom was, someone who helps, who cares, who makes the world a less hard place, and I will honor Dad's memory learning, growing, being curious about life." She placed the flowers over the grave. "I will not let you down. I promise." 2 years after the trial, spring arrived in Chicago with a golden light that bathed the old buildings of the university. It was June, the month of graduations, the month of closings and new beginnings. Lucy woke up early in her small shared apartment. Her roommates, Anna and Chris, were already awake, preparing coffee and toast in the tiny kitchen. "The big day," Anna exclaimed, hugging her. "Nervous?" "A bit," Lucy admitted, although in her eyes shone something more than nervousness. It was gratitude, wonder for having arrived. There. She dressed with care. The light blue dress Michael had helped her choose, simple but elegant shoes, hair loose falling over her shoulders. In front of the mirror, she stopped a moment. The young girl looking back was no longer the scared girl from the shelter. She was 20 years old, but in her look there was a maturity that only suffering overcome gives. Michael arrived in Chicago on the first train in the morning. He wore his best suit, navy blue, and in his hands a bouquet of white. Lilies, Elizabeth's favorite flowers. When Lucy saw him waiting at the door of the building, she ran to hug him. "You arrived early." "I wouldn't miss it for anything in the world," he responded with an emotional voice. "Your mother would be so proud." The ceremony was held in the Great Hall, a historic building with high ceilings and stained glass that projected colors over the walls. There were more than 300 graduates, families filling every seat, a constant murmur of contained emotion. Michael sat in the first row next to the aisle. Next to him were Raymond, the shelter director, Professor Martin, Jack Miller, and Alvin Rivers. All had been part of Lucy's path, and all had come to celebrate. When the dean began to call names in alphabetical order, Michael felt his heart beat faster. Minutes passed. Lewis, Martin, Miller, Moore, Lucy Miller Smith graduated with honors in social work. Michael stood up so fast he almost knocked over the chair. He applauded with strength, with tears running freely down his cheeks. He did not care who saw him. Raymond and the others stood up too, applauding. Lucy went up to the stage with the black gown waving slightly. She received her diploma from the dean, who shook her hand with special warmth. For a second she looked for Michael's eyes in the crowd. When she found them, both smiled through the tears. After the ceremony, the university gardens filled with graduates posing for photographs with their families. Lucy was immediately surrounded by her classmates. "You made it!" Chris shouted, hugging her. "We knew you would be the best of the class," another classmate added. Michael observed from some distance, letting her enjoy with her group. But Lucy looked for him with her look. She made a sign. He approached. "Grandfather, come. I want you to meet everyone." He spent the next hour being introduced by Lucy to her professors, who spoke wonders of her dedication, to her roommates, who hugged him as if he were their own grandfather, to the shelter girls who had come in a group, dressed in their best clothes, shy but happy. "Your granddaughter inspires us all," a young girl of 17 years told him. "She shows us it is possible." Michael could not talk. He only nodded, squeezing Lucy's hand. When finally they stayed alone for a moment, sitting on a bench under a century-old tree, Michael took out a small velvet case. "This was your mother's," he said, opening it. Inside there was a simple necklace, a silver chain with a small heart-shaped pendant. Inside the heart, engraved in tiny letters, the initials E.S. "Elizabeth wore it always," Michael explained with a trembling voice. "When she died, I kept it. I thought about giving it to you 1,000 times, but I never knew how. Now I think it is the moment." Lucy took the necklace with trembling hands. She held it against the light, seeing how it shone. "Can you help me put it on?" Michael fastened it around her neck. Lucy touched the small heart, feeling the warm metal against her skin. "Now she is with you," Michael said. "Always." That night, they celebrated in a small but cozy restaurant downtown. Nothing flashy, but with delicious food and soft red wine. There were Michael, Lucy, Jack, Alvin, Raymond, Professor Martin, and 3 of the beneficiaries of the Elizabeth Smith Foundation. Jack raised his glass for a toast. "For Lucy, who reminds us that true success is not measured in titles or money, but in the capacity to transform pain into purpose." "For Lucy," everyone repeated. One of the girls from the foundation, Martha, 18 years old, asked to speak. She was shy, but stood up with determination. I only want to say thank you. Thank you, Lucy, for creating this foundation. Without the scholarship, I would not be studying now. I would still be in the street, or worse. You didn't give us only money. You gave us hope. You gave us proof that we can get ahead." Lucy got up and hugged her. Both were crying. "You made it yourself," she whispered to her. "I only opened a door. It was you who had the bravery to cross it." Back in Miami the next day, Michael and Lucy walked by the sea at sunset. The water shone under the setting sun. The waves broke softly against the sand. There were families walking, children running, ice cream sellers. "Do you know what is the strangest thing of all this?" Lucy said, stopping to look at the horizon. "For years, when I lived with Sarah, I used to imagine how it would be to have a normal family. Someone to talk to during dinner, someone who asked how my day was, someone who cared if I arrived late. And now you have it," Michael said softly. "And now I have it," she repeated, smiling. "But what I never imagined is how much it would heal my heart to have it. It is not only the financial security, not even the education. It is feeling seen, feeling valued, feeling loved not despite my past, but including everything I have been." Michael surrounded her with his arm. "Your past made you strong, but it does not define you. What defines you is what you choose to do with that strength." They walked in silence for a bit. Lucy touched Elizabeth's necklace distractedly. "Grandfather, there is something I want to tell you for some time." "Tell me." "I know you feel guilty for not searching for me earlier, for having trusted Sarah, for the lost years." Michael nodded, unable to deny it. "But I do not blame you," Lucy continued. "You made decisions with the information you had, with the pain you carried. You lost your wife, then your daughter. You were broken, and Sarah took advantage of that. The guilt is hers, not yours." Even so," Lucy interrupted with firmness. "You found me. When something seemed strange to you, you did not ignore it. You hired a detective. You came to find me. You saved me. And since then, every day, you have shown me that I am loved. That is what matters." Michael stopped, turned toward her, and hugged her tight. "I don't know what I did to deserve such a wise granddaughter. You raised a daughter who valued kindness above everything else, and that was passed on, even though I could never know her." 2 weeks later, Lucy began her first job as a social worker in the New Hope Reception Center, an institution that cared for youth between 14 and 21 years in situations of vulnerability. Her office was small but bright, with a window that looked out to a patio where the residents played soccer. On her desk she placed 2 framed photographs, one of Elizabeth in her nurse uniform, smiling with that warmth that crossed time, the other, recent, Michael and Lucy on the Miami balcony, hugged under the city lights. Her first case was Danielle, a girl of 14 years who had just left the protection system. She had short blue-dyed hair, piercings in the nose and ears, and an expression of absolute distrust. "Are you another social assistant who is going to promise me things and then disappear?" she asked with hardness when she sat in front of Lucy. "No," Lucy responded with calm. "I am someone who was exactly where you are, and who knows that empty promises are no use." Danielle raised an eyebrow, skeptical. "You?" She looked at the university degree on the wall, Lucy's presentable clothes, the silver necklace. "I don't believe it." Lucy took off the necklace and placed it over the desk. "This was my mother's. She died giving birth to me. I grew up with a woman who stole more than $1 million destined for me and made me live in extreme poverty. I slept on a mattress on the floor. I ate leftovers. I did not go to school until I turned 18 and she threw me to the street. I lived in a shelter. I washed dishes to eat." Danielle was looking at her now with very open eyes. "So when I tell you I understand what it is to feel that no one loves you, that no one cares, that you are alone against the world, believe me, I understand for real. And how did you get out of that?" Danielle's voice was softer now, vulnerable. "First, someone looked for me, my grandfather. Then, I accepted help, even though it scared me to trust. And finally, I decided that my past would not dictate my future. It was hard. Some days I wanted to give up, but I didn't. And now I am here, to help you and others like us, to show that there are exit paths." Danielle remained in silence for a long moment. Then, almost imperceptibly, her shoulders relaxed. "What do I have to do?" "First you tell me what you need. Then together we make a plan. I don't promise miracles, I promise hard work, honesty and constant support." "Okay," Danielle nodded. "I can live with that." It was the beginning of many conversations, many stories, many lives touched. The months passed. The Elizabeth Smith Foundation grew, from 30 beneficiaries the first year they passed to 50 the second, and planned to reach 100 the third. They not only gave financial scholarships, they also organized life skills workshops, group therapy, individual mentoring. Michael got actively involved. He used his business experience to manage the foundation's finances, making sure every dollar was used efficiently. He also gave occasional talks on resilience and personal wealth building. "I don't talk about money," he told the young girls. "I talk about building a life with purpose, about making decisions today that your future self will thank you for." One autumn afternoon, almost 3 years, after the trial, Lucy received another letter. This time it was from Mark, Sarah's son. "Lucy, I do not expect an answer. I only want you to know that my mother told me the full truth before entering prison. I know what we did to you. I know what I deliberately ignored because it was more comfortable not to see. I have sold everything I had bought with money that was yours. I have donated that money to organizations that help vulnerable youth. It does not erase anything, but it is the only thing I can do. I am in therapy trying to understand how I was an accomplice to so much damage. I do not ask for forgiveness because I do not deserve it. I only want you to know I fully recognize my responsibility. Mark." Lucy read the letter out loud to Michael during dinner. "What are you going to do?" he asked. "I don't know yet," Lucy admitted. "A part of me wants to ignore it. Another part recognizes that he was also a victim of Sarah, although in a different way. He grew up believing that lying and stealing was acceptable if it benefited your family. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting," Michael said. "It means freeing yourself from the weight of resentment. I know, but I am not ready yet. And it's fine. Forgiveness is a process, not an event. You will arrive when you arrive, or maybe you never arrive. Both options are valid." Lucy kept the letter along with Sophie's. Maybe one day she would respond. Maybe not. She had the right to choose. What she did do was visit Sarah in prison. She went alone without telling Michael on a rainy day in November. Sarah had aged notably. The dyed hair now showed grey roots. The excessive makeup had disappeared. The clothes were the standard prison uniform. When she saw Lucy enter the visiting room, her eyes filled with tears. "I didn't think you would come," she said with a raspy voice. "Neither did I," Lucy responded, sitting in front of her. They looked at each other in silence for a moment. "How are you?" Sarah asked finally. "Fine. I graduated with honors. I work helping youth at risk. I live with my grandfather when I'm in Miami. I have friends, purpose, future." Sarah nodded, crying openly now. "I am glad. I am really glad." "Why did I come?" Lucy said, more for herself than for Sarah. I have asked myself that question all the way here. And did you find the answer? I think I came to tell you that I no longer hate you, that I understand you were broken inside, full of envy and bitterness, that you hurt an innocent girl because you didn't know how to handle your own pain, and that is your responsibility, not mine. Sarah sobbed now without control. I also came to tell you, Lucy continued with a firm voice, that despite everything you did to me, I survived. And not only survived, I thrived. I built a meaningful life, and nothing of what you did could take that from me. I am sorry, Sarah whispered. I am sorry for everything, every day, every night. I know, and I hope that regret leads you to change. Not for me, for yourself. Lucy stood up to leave. Lucy, Sarah called. Yes? Your mother would be proud of you. That I know for sure. Lucy nodded without responding and left the visiting room. Outside it rained with strength, but she felt light, freed from a weight she did not know she still carried. That night, back in Miami, she had dinner with Michael on the balcony despite the rain. They had placed an awning months ago, creating a cozy space where they could be together regardless of the weather. I went to see Sarah today, Lucy said. Michael raised his look from his plate, surprised but without judging. How was it? Necessary. It closed something that was still open. Do you feel better? Yes. I didn't forgive her, I don't know if I ever will, but I no longer hate her, and that is enough. Michael extended his hand over the table. Lucy took it. Every day you look more like your mother, not only in the physical, in the strength, in the compassion, in the capacity to heal and move forward. I hope to honor her with the life I live. You already do, dear. Every day, with every person you help, with every decision to choose kindness over resentment. You already do. The following years brought more growth. Lucy completed a master's degree in social intervention with families. The Elizabeth Smith Foundation reached more than 200 young girls. Michael, now 78 years old, began to delegate more responsibilities but stayed active on the board of directors. And in every step of the way, grandfather and granddaughter built what the stolen years could not destroy. A family based not only on biology, but on chosen love, cultivated, protected, day by day. One sunny afternoon in May, 5 years after that first meeting in the shelter, Lucy took Michael back to Holy Hope Shelter. Raymond received them with warm hugs. The place is different, Lucy observed, looking around. They had renovated the kitchen, painted the walls, bought new mattresses. On a plaque next to the entrance it said, Elizabeth Smith Kitchen, donated by the Elizabeth Smith Foundation, second opportunity. Your grandfather insisted, Raymond said. He said it was appropriate that the place where he found you carried the name of the one who gave you life. Michael shrugged, modest. Elizabeth dedicated her life to helping others. This seemed right. That night, at the annual dinner of the foundation, Lucy gave a speech in front of 200 people. Current and past beneficiaries, donors, volunteers, social workers. 5 years ago, she began, I was exactly where many of you are now, alone, scared, convinced that the world had no place for me. But here I am, not because I am special or particularly strong, but because someone believed in me when I could not believe in myself. She looked at Michael, sitting in the first row. My grandfather taught me that family is not always who gave you life. Sometimes it is who gave you back the desire to live it. He taught me that true legacy is not the money you leave, but the lives you touch. And he taught me that never, never is it too late to start again. The applause was deafening. Michael cried without hiding, proud of the woman his granddaughter had become. After the event, walking through the city streets toward the car, Lucy took Michael's arm. Do you know what is the most beautiful thing of all this? What? That we took something terrible, a robbery, an abuse, lost years, and we turned it into something that helps hundreds of people. The pain of my past now has purpose. Sarah wanted to destroy me, but instead, without wanting it, she gave me the empathy and understanding that allow me to help others. That is the greatest revenge, Michael said. Not returning the damage, but using that damage to create something beautiful. It is not revenge, Lucy corrected softly. It is redemption. They arrived at the car, and before entering, Lucy looked toward the night sky, where the stars shone despite the city lights. Mom, she whispered, wherever you are, I hope you see this. I hope you know your sacrifice was not in vain. that the life you gave me I have used to help others, as you did. That although I could never know you, I live every day trying to be worthy of your love." Michael hugged her while both looked at the sky. "She sees it," he said with certainty, "and she is proud, like me." When they returned home that night, the apartment received them with warmth. It was not a mansion. There was no flashy luxury, but it was a home, a place full of photographs, books, shared memories, laughs and tears. Lucy prepared tea while Michael put on soft music. They sat on the balcony, as they did almost every night, under the stars that shone. "Do you know what I often think about?" Lucy said, blowing her tea. "What? In how one single decision can change everything. If you had not looked at that photograph with attention, if you had not noticed something strange, if you had not hired Alvin, I would still be in that shelter or worse. Maybe I would not have survived. But you survived," Michael said firmly, "and you would have survived even without me. You are stronger than you think. Maybe, but I would not have thrived. I would not have healed. I would not have learned what it means to be loved unconditionally." Michael left his cup on the table. "Do you know what you taught me?" Lucy looked at him with curiosity. "That it is never too late to correct an error. For 18 years I lived with the guilt of having abandoned you. I believed that was my destiny, carrying that guilt until dying. But you gave me a second opportunity. You allowed me to be the grandfather I always should have been. And that saved me as much as I saved you." They stayed in silence, each one lost in their thoughts. The sound of the city mixed with the breeze. It was a perfect moment in its imperfection, real in its simplicity. "Grandfather," Lucy said finally, "promise me something, anything, that you will not feel guilt again, that you will understand that what matters are not the years we lost, but the years we are building, that you will forgive yourself as I have forgiven you." Michael felt a knot in his throat. "I will try. Every day I will try. It is enough." Lucy leaned back in her chair, touching Elizabeth's necklace distractedly. It had become an automatic gesture, a constant reminder of where she came from and why she continued forward. "What do you plan to do after the Masters?" Michael asked. "There is a position for director of the center where I work. Raymond suggested I apply. And will you do it?" "I think so. I could implement new programs, expand services, help more youth, and continue working directly with them, which is what I love most. You would be an excellent director." "I will try," Lucy smiled, echoing Michael's words. "Every day I will try." The clock in the living room struck 11 at night. It was late, but neither of them was in a hurry to retire. These moments together, simple and quiet, were the ones they most treasured. "Do you remember the day we met?" Michael asked suddenly. "Like it was yesterday. I was washing dishes. I had red hands from the detergent. I wore clothes that were too big for me, and suddenly you entered saying you were my grandfather. I thought it was a cruel joke, and I thought my heart would break seeing you like that. But it didn't break," Lucy said softly. "It opened, and it let love in where before there was only pain." Michael extended his hand. Lucy took it. They remained like that, grandfather and granddaughter, united by blood, but even more by choice, by forgiveness, by love, built day by day in night conversations and small gestures. "I love you, grandfather," Lucy said, "and I you, my girl," more than words can express. The city lights shone below, each lit window representing a life, a story, a set of dreams and pains. Lucy thought about all the people in that city, in that country, in the world, who were struggling, surviving, waiting for someone to see them. "Tomorrow," she said with renewed determination, "I will help one more, and the day after tomorrow, another, and I will continue doing it as long as I can, because now I know that one person, one gesture, one opportunity can change everything." "That is your mother's legacy," Michael responded, "and now it is yours too." They stayed on the balcony until after midnight, talking about future plans, remembering past moments, weaving the net of shared memories that would turn the lost years into gained wisdom. When finally they went inside, Lucy stopped in the hallway where the family photographs hung. Elizabeth baby, Elizabeth girl, Elizabeth adult. And now among them photos of Lucy, the day of her graduation, in the shelter with the girls, in the foundation, hugged with Michael. 2 generations of strong women, 2 stories of sacrifice and love, an unbroken line of kindness that, Cruelty could not break. "Good night, Mom," Lucy whispered to Elizabeth's photograph. "Thank you for everything, especially for giving me him." In her room, before sleeping, Lucy wrote in the diary she had started to keep by her therapist's suggestion. "Today, I understood something fundamental. Justice is not only about punishing who does damage, it is about restoring what was broken, about returning dignity to whom they took it from, about demonstrating that love is stronger than hate, that the truth always finds its way, and that never, never is it too late to start again. Sarah took 18 years from me, but she could not take the future. She could not take the capacity to love, to dream, to build something beautiful over the rubble of my past. Mom died to give me life. Grandfather found me to return the future to me, and I choose every day to honor both sacrifices, living with purpose, with compassion, with gratitude. I am not a victim, I am a survivor, I am a creator, I am the one who decides what my story will mean, and I choose that it means hope." She closed the diary and turned off the light. Through the open window entered the night breeze. Somewhere in that same city, a young girl slept in a shelter, dreaming of a better future. Tomorrow, maybe, their paths would cross, and Lucy would be there, ready to be the bridge between hopelessness and possibility. Because that is what those who have walked through darkness do. They carry light to others who are still lost in it. Because that is what it means to honor the sacrifice of those who loved us, living lives that multiply that love in the world. Because in the end, true wealth is not measured in dollars or in properties, but in lives touched, hopes renewed, and in the infinite capacity of the human heart to heal, grow and flourish, even in the most arid soil. And Lucy Miller Smith, daughter of Elizabeth, granddaughter of Michael, survivor and healer, understood finally that her life had not been destroyed by Sarah's cruelty. It had been forged by it.